I had to accept that before that I would leave any job for an audition. I would take the risk of being fired. I would, lose my financial stability if it meant opening an opportunity for my passion.
What's up? This is Will Ennis, and you're listening to Create Up. It's a podcast where I talk to different artists about their creativity. I'll be speaking with musicians, directors, comedians, writers, and more. They've all had great success, and they are graciously sharing their stories with us. So let's get into it.
Today's guest is McLeod. She's an award-winning actor, probably best known for her role as Irene in the feel-good comedy Don't Talk to Irene. I saw that movie in a packed theater in 2017 during TIFF. The whole place was roaring with laughter up until the end. There's this really sweet moment that happens, and then literally everyone started crying, like a theater of like 1,000 people. There wasn't a dry eye in the place, and definitely it was one of my top 5 moments in a cinema ever. And if you're an aspiring actor, or you're curious about what the career path of a working actor looks like, you'll really want to hear what she has to say. She gives us a very honest look at the sacrifices one has to make, the type of challenges one's likely to face, and the kind of commitment you need to be successful. If you like this show, please like, comment, subscribe, share, tell your Uber driver, anything. I appreciate all the support for the show I've been getting, and I want to keep the momentum going. So now, sit back and enjoy my talk with McLeod.
Michelle, welcome to the podcast, my friend. It's good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Willie.
I wanted to start by having you reflect on where it all started for you. How did this journey begin?
You know what? The whole idea of becoming an actor came from watching like old musicals and things like that, the singing and the dancing and the just pure fun of that whole experience. And when I realized that was like someone's job, an actor was someone's job, and they got to make movies and literally are dancing around having an amazing time, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And without ever having people in my life telling me that I couldn't do something, the sky's the limit. So I just went all in, and it turned out to be an incredibly rewarding experience to freely follow your dreams.
Oh, that's awesome. And this is when you were like a young girl in Peterborough growing up?
Yeah, exactly. So I would watch musicals and stuff with my grandma, and I would memorize the movies. So if I put on, say, The Music Man, for example, I would watch it maybe 4 times a day until I had every line, every dance move, every song down, so that I could recreate it. And once I got into that swing of things, it was like stage fright was a big thing. I remember the first time I auditioned for a play. It was one of the movies I had always watched. It was Oliver, the musical. And I didn't know what an audition was. And so I just thought you went into a room and they would tell you if you're in or not. And so I went to this audition. I was like 9 years old, 10 years old. I walked into the room and I was like, hey, I want to be in the play. I know all about this. I could do this really well. And they're like, okay, we need to see you sing. And I was like, oh, crap. Okay, sure, I'll sing. They got me to sing Happy Birthday. I was shaking. I was just so scared. And then they had me read some lines, and I really didn't know what was going on. And I left and I didn't get in. And I was like, oh, you know what? Now I know what an audition is. You have to prepare. And so I found out what the next play was the next year, which was another favorite movie of mine called The Music Man. And this was one I had already pretty much memorized. So my dad went out and got me the record, not the CD, like the old school record.
Nice.
And I practiced singing the songs every day for almost a year. And then I went into that audition and crushed it to the point where I almost got the lead role of Amaryllis. I got my very first callback on my very first successful audition. And ended up in the chorus, but they gave me featured chorus parts as like an 11-year-old. And it was an experience that changed my life. I knew this was what I was going to do.
For sure. And do you think that the putting preparation like that into the role is what quelled your stage fright? Or do you find there are different things that lead to you getting stage fright?
I think my stage fright comes from being a perfectionist. I don't want to let anybody down, and I want to do the best job that I can. So I think that's where that came from. Stage fright comes a little bit from the thought of what if I don't get it? what if this isn't for me? Because acting is such a unpredictable career. That's where the thick skin has to come in, because there's so many factors that has to do with not just your talent, but roles and looks and all these other factors. And so I think that's the most nerve-wracking part, really. I guess that's how it's transitioned into my life. But back then, it was really putting myself out there, like singing in front of people, like a theater of, a few hundred people are going to come hear me sing. That's a little nerve-wracking. I never sang in front of anybody before. So it kind of started off as that, and then it turned into, like, I still get a little nervous, but ultimately it's the adrenaline, the excitement. And I kind of love the feeling of being a little bit stage fright, I guess I want to use that word, because it gives some sort of undefinable energy that's kind of exciting.
I know what you mean. And I feel like nervousness, depending on how you talk to yourself, nervousness can kind of run you off the rails or be like gasoline or fuel to kind of propel you forward. So it sounds like the internal game, like the mental game is really important to sort of get to where you are now, how you talk to yourself, how you kind of hypnotize yourself. Do you have any examples of times you've sort of had to do like a Jedi mind trick on yourself to crush a performance?
Yeah. I remember I was in a kids' play, and right before the show opened, they said, we're adding an additional Christmas song, and we need you to walk out there at one point and sing it. And it was right before the show. And that's, I guess, where I first learned how to improv. And I remember trying to practice the words in the wing. Wasn't 100% sure, like I knew the words. I think it was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I was like, I know this song. Why am I nervous? You get nervous a little bit because you don't want to let anybody down. You don't want to show any nervousness. And I came to the acceptance of like trusting myself. It's like, this song. Get into it. Don't be scared. Everything's going to be fine. Like, if anything, just be with the audience, and they're here to watch you. They don't really care about the song. And sometimes if I'm feeling like if I may forget my lines or whatever, I do kind of Jedi mind trick myself into remembering that these people are here to see you. And as long as you are there for them, they don't care what you do.
Totally.
They're on your side, basically. So I often think of that in times where I get a little nervous and pump myself up a little bit, because it's true. No one's in the audience with tomatoes ready to throw at you. Everyone, at least in my experience, has always been so supportive. And as long as you're there with them and like putting a smile on their face, which is ultimately the goal, then you can't fail.
Yeah, I totally agree. I only bring in tomatoes to the theater when I'm hungry. Like, I just want to have a tomato, and never thrown a tomato.
I've thrown a few, but like only because of like something scary happened or something.
I've thrown a look. Like, I've thrown a look on stage, like, yo, I like what you're doing, but no fruit or veggies. What's funny about that is I apply similar tactics like that to auditioning. Like, I'll play, a mind game on myself, or remind myself that, yeah, these people are not against you. They want to see you succeed. And I'll bring that into my personal life. I don't know if you ever had that, but like, I was meeting my girlfriend's brothers, and I remember walking into the condo for the first time, and I got so full of fear because in my head, I needed it to be perfect. I needed them to know, like, I'm the guy for her, all this stuff. And I started to almost feel like I was like auditioning, and then, which was crazy. It filled me with anxiety. And then that subtle shift to being like, no, these guys are just like me. They want me to succeed. They want to see her happy. And it's just funny how we walk into a situation, or the lens we view it through, is one, so changeable, and two, so powerful. Just a sudden shift in perspective will change your whole mood, your whole vibe. Anyway, long story short, I get less nervous. I don't feel like I want to run away. But anxiety is, to say it lightly, it's a fucked up thing, But enough about me. Enough about me. This is not a therapy session. I love hearing about all these different tactics of yours. And I wanted to ask you overall, what is your acting philosophy? Do you have a philosophy when it comes to acting?
Yeah, I do. I guess I do have a philosophy that's developed over time with my training, I guess, with acting, is that they're not looking for you to act. The best way to be an actor is to use your own life experiences, emotional experiences, emotional reference points, and truly your personality of who you are as human to bring out a character, which is ultimately like you can use so many facets of your life, so many experiences, and just project them into some sort of scenario that will help make scenarios authentic. And so I guess my philosophy is to experience as much as I can so that when called to tell a story that needs to be authentic to some sort of experience, I really hope that there's a part of my life I could pull from to bring some authenticity into it. Because ultimately for me, what's the most best thing about being an actor is being relatable. There's nothing better than going to see a movie and like rooting for someone you feel represents a little piece of you. And the more authentic you are in that, I think the more people are going to relate to you and connect. And that's, to me, a successful actor.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And it also it's a way to give sort of meaning to the difficult times in life too.
Oh, totally. When you can see people going through almost the same experience or emotional experience, like I'm really big on facial expressions and looks because I think you can say a lot without having to say anything at all. And I think we communicate more with visually with our expressions than we think. And that's one of my favorite techniques as well, is just finding out really just the whole intricacies of human nature and then finding a way to portray it onto screen because someone's going to click into it, which is going to be awesome.
Oh, totally. And when you say like you're big on expressions and looks, is that always an internal process or can you externalize? Can you start with a look and then it changes how you feel as the character? Or do you start with your feeling first and the look kind of comes out organically or without trying? Like, how does that come to be?
It definitely comes first. I don't think of character first. I think about kind of the situation and trying to relate it to a situation that I could relate to. But when I talk about looks, I mean like there's a lot of subtleties in conversation that we don't realize, like the way you move your face, the way you shut your eyes, the way you blink. For example, in psychology, one thing is when you think about something, your eyes go up to the right-hand side. So little details like that, knowing how the intricacies of human nature work, brings you a little bit deeper on the emotional connection level that you are able to say so much without actually speaking. So when you have a lot to say or someone, say, in a scene says a lot to you, you don't just spit back lines because in real life, if someone you love comes up to you, for example, and they say, "I hate you," in real life, you're going to take a second to be like, "What?" And your face is going to react as your mind processes, and then you're going to speak. Those basic, like that little journey may not be noticeable to some, but it is true to how we act. And if you can portray that whole emotional process and also feel it and display it authentically, it just grounds that character, I think, so much more. So that's part of kind of like the technique. But my philosophy is to know about that kind of stuff and give it justice. It might sound weird, but it's very much part of the process for me.
No, that doesn't sound weird at all. I noticed that there is a lot of nuanced subtext to what you're doing, especially in Don't Talk to Irene. I actually just finished watching that again.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a great film. With that film, what did you draw on? Was there anything specifically you drew on for that film from your life? And it's about this sort of misfit. She's this like high school misfit.
For anyone listening who hasn't seen the film.
And correct me if I'm like doing a disservice to explaining the film, but what did you draw on from your life to portray Irene?
Irene, I feel very close to her because I always felt very similar. Like I lived in the big girl body. I understand what it's like. And similarly to her, I don't really listen to other people when it comes to doing what I want and following dreams. Irene and I just had two different dreams. And it's about not giving in to people and not listening to the bullying. And had I done that as a kid, I probably would have been a lot more shy and a lot more reserved, being afraid of what other people think. But one thing I do admire about myself and about Irene, and I think why we connected so much, is that we persevere, we are driven, and we know our worth, and we only have one life. And she was able to focus and not let other people impede on her dreams. And I think I was able to do that too, because, I was a big girl. I wanted to go do acting. Nobody else was interested. I had to convince my parents that that's what I was going to do, that I had to leave the house all the time. And it takes a lot of drive. And so when I had that character, I was like, oh my God, it's almost parallel to how I was at her age. And it's all about perseverance and following your dreams and getting what you want out of life, in addition to being kind. Like, it's the weight of the world is already so heavy. It would be terrible to carry the weight of other people's words.
Oh, that is really beautifully said.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. I think we all have that self-doubt, and we all have people in our lives we can give more weight to in terms of their opinions. How did you manage to shed the haters or the doubters?
I just don't pay attention to them. It became so constant. Like, I went to 7 different schools as a kid because of bullying.
Oh, wow.
The bullying just became part of life. It wasn't really something I was affected by, because if the first time someone bullies you, sure, it hurts. But like, the way that I was bullied as a bigger girl, also, marching to the beat of my own drum, people are going to try to bring you down. And it just comes to a point. I'm actually very thankful that it happened to me at a young age, because it just got to the point where you just don't hear it. You just don't see it. And if you do, it doesn't affect you, because you're like, it doesn't matter. The hurdle has already been jumped. And so similarly to Irene, I think that had happened to her too, is like, at some point in life, it just rolls off the shoulder and you persevere. And so I kind of felt that way too. In my life, is like, it can only take so much. And I grew up with 4 brothers. Okay. So I'm pretty resilient. By the time I went out to public, anything anybody had to say to me has already been said by my brothers. And so it wasn't a big deal. So it was easy to be a little more resilient in that kind of way. But I mean, I did endure the bullying. I went to 7 different schools, and I'm okay with that, because what it taught me is how to thrive in new situations. I always had to make friends. I always had to, be seen. I always had to assert myself in these situations. And that really, really helped me throughout my life.
Definitely. That's amazing. It's like finding meaning in what could have been seen as suffering. And now I feel like, I should ask, now, do you feel like you're like a symbol of perseverance for other people that may be going through similar challenges?
I don't know if I would consider myself a symbol. I would really hope that anyone who is struggling with perseverance or what have you could find inspiration, of course, through my journey. You know what? I even surprise myself with my journey. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know what's happening. This is crazy. I did not know this was going to work out. It's all very much a surprise. The only thing that's not a surprise is that I'm not going to give up. And so when the good things happen, when all these things happen, like when Irene happened, all these TV shows, all these things, it's always a surprise. It's always just like, oh, it's working. Oh, this is working. But even if it wasn't working, I'm very fueled by passion, and I don't think I could do anything else. And I'm just happy to do it. Like, I'm happy to go to auditions. I'm happy to, be in the background, a background actor. Even after I did Irene, I did background work, not because...
Really? Oh my God, I had no idea.
Yeah, and I don't do it because I need to be the star of the show. I honestly am doing this because it brings me so much joy. So...
Wow, even background, even the smallest roles.
Matter to me. I would take any role. I would be the best tree number 3 anybody ever had. I would love to be in the background. I just love the atmosphere. I love seeing other people act. I want to be a part of the project. Honestly, the role doesn't matter. I'm thankful to have opportunities where I get to use what I've learned to be in roles. But at the end of the day, even if I was working background, I'm okay with that, because I'm still technically doing what I love. So yeah, if anyone's out there and needing some inspiration to persevere, like I always tell people, especially actors, this is not going to be for you unless you love it, because it's hard. It's very hard. It takes a toll on your emotions, but the only way to combat that is you take the pressure off yourself and think of it as what it is. This is fun. This is joyful. This is an experience different than anything else you can get in the world. And if you can accept it and see it for that, every time you do something, it's a win. Every time you audition, it's a win. Every time you get a script, it's a win. Like, there's so many wins, and there's so many people out there, if you're not passionate about this and they just think about the fame, the money, the exposure, it's
or
not going
the
to be
status
rewarding.
of the role. I love that you said that, because it was so humble that you can go from a lead role to background without batting an eye. And hearing you say that actually cleared up a lot of questions for me, because it's like, once you have certain success, sometimes people feel they're taking a step back by doing something. But it sounds like you're just so in love with the craft that as long as you're doing it in some regard, it almost sounds like whatever role comes your way is the one that you're supposed to do. Do you have like a spiritual sense of your art form?
A spiritual sense? Like, what do you mean by that?
Like, the roles you get are for a reason, and the ones you miss, as much as you want them, there's a higher purpose for you to not get it, let's say.
Yes, I do believe there's a spiritual sense. At first, of course, when you're starting out, it's very easy to give into the self-doubt that you're not good enough and what have you. But I've come to realize that it's, again, because of all the subjective factors that go into acting, I do my work. That's one thing I know. I have as many years as to be a studied actor as a doctor has to do open heart surgery on you. So I remind myself of that I've put into the work, and I continue to do the work. So when I don't get a role, I do spiritually think that it's not for me. There's so many factors, and usually the door opens somewhere else. And yeah, I believe an opportunity is an opportunity. You never give up on an opportunity. And when the role is yours, it's a beautiful thing, because I've never felt more connected with than all the roles that I've done. Like, all the auditions I've sent in that I've actually booked, when I send it, I think to myself, this is it. You just know in your heart that it's yours. And then there's other moments it goes out and you're like, you know what? This one might not be for me, and that's okay. So yeah, it's serendipitous. Everything happens for a reason, and that's why you got to keep trucking. You got to keep going, because there's going to be a role out there that you get an opportunity to do, and it might be the role of a lifetime. Like Irene, for example. I was 27, and they sent me a role for a 15-year-old fat girl. And I sent a message back to my agent. I said, 15? Really? And she's like, he's a little young, but like, let's just try it out. And so I went and I did the audition, and I didn't realize how much I looked like a 15-year-old until I got that part.
Yeah, we were saying that today when we were watching you.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, if I had said no to that audition, said, no, I'm a 27-year-old woman, and I don't, and had a bit of an ego about it, I would have lost out on the opportunity of a lifetime. And so you're becoming a character. It doesn't matter. And so I would say, yeah, if an opportunity arises itself, think of it as a way to just act. That's where the passion comes in. If you're sitting there picking and choosing, then you're not really having the opportunity to experience, and you never know what's going to come out of it.
Mm-hmm. What advice do you give for people that are training? Is there such a thing as overtraining? Because I get the sense that most actors, we are uncertain. There's tons of uncertainty. And sometimes that uncertainty leads you to put faith in like a teacher, like as if they have all the answers. How important is it to be independent in like your steady?
For me, I just wanted to gain as much experience as I could. I don't put teachers on the pedestal. A lot of teachers would probably attest to that. I challenge a lot of my teachers over the years, based on the information I get. I'm not someone who's easily swayed by sometimes the whole process that some people can fall into, where they don't think of themselves as good enough. Like, I'm doing the work, I'm in this class, I'm listening to you, and I have to give myself some credit for being there and for taking in the experience. And how I interpret the experience is what I'm going to bring to the table. And if I keep trying to compare myself to my teacher, that my teacher can only say so much. And I just hope that there's only going to be some things that resonate. And those are the things that are going to help me. And the rest, it doesn't matter, because clearly they're not going to be the tools in my toolkit. And so when I take classes, I may get a lot out of it and a lot more things to put in my toolkit. Sometimes I get nothing, but it either it reinforces what I already know, or it's just not my thing. I've been in many classes training where techniques are just not my thing. But you do them because what if they do become your thing or enhance someone else or something else or give you an idea? It's just all about experiencing. So anyone who's training, it's just part of the experience. You, one, have to love it. Two, got to realize that, when you read a book, you're only going to take away your favorite part. And then it's up to you to take your favorite part and, do what you will with it. And the more you know, the more tools you have in your toolkit. So one thing a lot of actors get into the habit of is not trusting themselves. You are your craft. If you don't trust yourself, if you don't believe in yourself, it's not going to work out for you. It needs to be 110% passion fueled. And if you can think to yourself, oh, I could go do X career instead of acting, you should probably go do that other career, because if you just won't make it.
Damn, that's some tough love for the up and coming actors out there. But I agree. I think you need to be 100% bought in.
I feel bad. I have so many friends. I mean, acting is such a wonderful dream, right? It's portrayed as a dream of grandeur and success and spotlight and money and all this stuff. It's like the ultimate thing, right? You are seen, you are heard. But that's not what acting is. That's not realistic. That's not how it's going to go. And if that's what you're chasing, you have no idea what these people who actually have achieved that have gone through. It's a long road. It's a long process. And no one's going to achieve that. I don't even believe that I would achieve something like that. I have never been striving for, man, if I was striving for fame and money, I've been doing it all wrong. I have been, poor as shit my whole life, but I'm very happy because I'm still doing what I love, and it doesn't matter. I have done acting for free. I have done commercials for free. It doesn't matter to me what it is, and if anything comes from that, that's just kind of like a bonus. And I don't mean to tough love people out there, but I've seen so many people fueled by the materialistic dream of what some actors have and what the world sees. And what they don't know is that if you don't have the passion, you will never get there. It's just an unattainable dream. And people try to attain it for, say, 30, 40 years, and they realize at the end of it, it kind of blows up in their face because they haven't gotten anywhere.
Yeah.
But if you're not willing to, quit your side job, if you're not willing to really bend over backwards for opportunities, and you're not willing to do the work, really, if you're not willing to take a risk or to live potentially at the societal low level, these are sacrifices you need to make in order to have the drive to succeed in this business.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I see a lot of people coming to realize that, and that's why my tough love might be a little bit tough, but I'm trying to
I think
be
your tough
open and
love is
honest
great.
about the reality of the situation.
I think it's great. I think people need to hear that, and really question why they want to do it, which is why I was really glad you were pretty clear about your philosophy of why you wanted to be an actor. Because I think without philosophy, without like a strong foundation, you're really kind of just blowing in the wind at the whims of your ego. Oh, I want to be famous. Oh, I want to be seen. But when you know it like you do in your core, you're like, no, I love this so much. What is it? Background? I'll do it. Commercial for free? I'll do it. Big lead role? I'll do it. I'm meant to do it. So I don't know. I just want to thank you for being so like open about all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's definitely the experience I've learned. I went into this career honestly not expecting success, and that might just come from, I don't know, I just didn't expect the success. I just wanted the opportunity to try, and it's it's worked out in my favor. There's literally nothing else I could do. I don't want to do anything else. And
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I recently took some mushrooms and shiitake mushrooms, of course, is all I'm saying. But I had some insight on these great grocery store mushrooms, and it was that as an artist myself, I was trying to be too interesting or trying to be too clever, and what the experience led me to realize is that like I am enough, and I kind of realized that training is good, but like without having an internal sense that you're okay, then all the training in the world is not going to get you on the path you need to be on. And so I really was glad I had that insight. Because I admit, like, I don't know if you felt this before, but I've been feeling lost on my purpose, which is probably one reason why I wanted to put together this podcast. Is I wanted to do more because I felt I was at the whims of the roles I was being offered and, what I believed my talent level was or who I was. And then I decided I'm going to start internally, feel confident, and go in a direction that I want to go in and not feel like I'm not behind the wheel of my destiny, I'm just sharing this. I don't know why I'm sharing this with you, but it's coming out.
No, I totally get it. I definitely feel that way too. One of the struggles that I've been dealing with the older I get is, you have to be in Toronto or Vancouver as a Canadian to basically succeed in the industry, which are the most expensive places to be, which means you're going to have to get a side job and get money to fuel your passion. And it's just almost like the side sense of living and providing for yourself. And I conflict with that sometimes because, societal pressure tells me that I need to be, earning a certain amount of money, that I need to be doing this, that I need to be doing that. And here I am still running after my dreams. And although I'm successful, it's not easy. Mm-hmm. You still can be in a lead film and not work for a year. That's a very realistic thing. And the money, that's why I say the money can't be the fuel. I had to accept that before that I would leave any job for an audition. I would take the risk of being fired. I would, lose my financial stability if it meant opening an opportunity for my passion. Mm-hmm. There was a point in my life I almost bought an inflatable mattress so I could live out of my car. I was so ready to just give up my home to keep going. I've been that close. And then opportunities come and the universe kind of saves you in that moment because you've dedicated your passion to it. And I find out in those lowest moments, which I've had a few, where I kind of take the thing, do I go get a job or do I remain available and open for these opportunities? And choosing the latter is very scary, but it's always come back to me in a positive way. And going forward in life, I struggle now in low moments where, say, I haven't had a role for a while, or if the industry like COVID has really shut down, I go, okay, if I were to get an opportunity, would in this moment, as in my 30s, give up a financial stability? And the struggle is real sometimes because I have, personal, let's say, adulting life goals. But at the end of the day, would I give it up to, even just film a commercial for a day? Probably. And you nice. Really have to make that decision. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't have that kind of drive, then you're going to lose an opportunity. And those are the opportunities that are so rewarding. Like, I book that commercial. I get the movie. And if I had said no because I was so afraid of, not making a certain amount of money per year, I would not be living truthfully to my, my whole life's work.
Aw, that's beautiful, buddy. I was going to say, so you've changed a lot since the Irene role. I know you've physically changed. You've gotten really into health. Do you ever feel like people want to see you in a certain box? Like they want to see you as Irene? Do you feel kind of limited by what you did in the past? Like a past success ends up kind of putting you into a box?
Well, I really liked Irene. Honestly, Irene is everything that I am. You know, funny, silly, awkward, driven, a little chubby. Like, that's great. And even my other roles, like, I love being the quirky girl and stuff because, like, that's who I am at my core. That's part of my personality. And even in Honeybee, I was playing a 16, 17-year-old. But what I was challenged with is I want to be able to play a facet of characters and a facet of emotions. And because I had a lot of roles back to back where I was kind of in this box, which is great because I was riding that train. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you can only express so much experience when you're playing 15, 16. I'm in my 30s. I have this whole box of experience, reference experience, wisdom that I want to be able to portray in a deep rooted character to do exactly what I was explaining before when it comes to like my philosophy is the intricacies of human life. And not that I was boxed, but in fear of being boxed, I could have ridden that train for a long time and been very successful and had all of the big nerdy girl roles for everything. You know, that would have been my niche. But then when that niche is done, where do you go from there? So as an actor, it's always about reinventing yourself and showing that you are not just one thing. And so it was important for me to be like, you know, I've always wanted to be on a health kick. I always wanted to get laser eye surgery. I've always wanted to change, but I felt unable to because I thought maybe I might lose my opportunities in acting. And what helped me change is I realized it's not about that. That's a crutch. And one thing I don't want to be as an actor is having a crutch. I have, as I said, I have trained, I have done my work, I do my work. And it would be at a disadvantage to myself to not prove that as the person I want to be, which is who I am now, like I didn't get fit to prove anything to anyone. This is just a personal thing about health. I didn't change my glasses to impress anybody. I've never seen my eyes. I've always had glasses. This was all personal, and this is what's fulfilling me. And I think with this change, it's almost like hitting the reset button on your career because now they have to figure out what box you fit into. And that's very scary for someone to do, especially when I was just on the roller coaster to a whole bunch of success. To change is taking a risk. And it took me a little while to convince myself that it was okay. But I'm glad I did it because now it's almost like my career is reborn and I'm being offered auditions for roles I never had before, and they're different. That gives me the opportunity to explore them. And although I haven't been booked in my new look, mostly, well, there's COVID too, but I haven't been booked in my new look, but it's almost like a rebirth of opportunity. And you almost have to, you know, I took myself off the ladder and I'm just going to climb myself back up is kind of where I think I'm at.
Oh, that's so beautiful. As your friend, I was so inspired to see all the life changes you were taking on and the health changes and how quickly you sort of like dropped the weight and got fit and just like made it your lifestyle and stayed consistent. And I think it's really relatable. I think it's really relatable for all people just wanting to continually progress. And I definitely take cues from you on that, just being my friend, watching how like disciplined you are and motivated and all of that, really.
Well, there's one little secret. Like, I think the Don't Talk to Irene movie really changed my life because it allowed me to close a door on that type of chapter in my life. Because sometimes I watch that movie when I'm feeling low, not to watch myself, because I actually find a lot of inspiration in the character of Irene, to the point where I realize she's so driven. And I often think, what would she be like now? Like, what would she be like a few years down the road? Would she still be like her nerdy, quirky self, or is she continuously leveling up? So sometimes I draw inspiration from that movie based on that character. And it was a really kind of cathartic thing because I have that piece. I almost got to tell my own story through her because our lives were so parallel. And that gave me the strength to, as I said, kind of reinvent myself with who I wanted to be without fear of being rejected.
Completely. And I wonder if there could be a sequel to Irene. That'd be really interesting to see where a character like that who'd been bullied
Who knows?
to catch up with a character like that.
Mills has some ideas up his sleeve. when it comes to Irene. I'm sure he knows where she's grown up to be, and I bet you it's hilarious.
You recently slayed at the Toronto Monologue Slam. You took home top prize for comedy monologue, and you've done a lot of improv. You've hosted Sunday Night Live, and you have a really good comedic sense. Do you have any tips for like how to break down a hilarious monologue or any monologue? What would be some tips?
Monologues to me is storytelling. So how I prepare for a monologue is I try to be aware of how I act when I tell my own personal stories. And a monologue especially is not about regurgitating words. It's about living through an experience, and this experience is so fresh and so important to you that you have to tell a story about it and nobody interrupts you. So to me, monologues are captivating. And the comedic monologue, honestly, it's only comedic because you're so into the story and the words that you're actually saying are so silly, right? It's just that's where the silliness comes from it, and that's what I love about it. So what my advice I'd give when it comes to doing monologues is like, you honestly have to relate to that character because it needs to be a story that you enjoy talking about. Like if the story makes you sad, like it needs to have an effect on you. It needs to make you sad. If it makes you laugh, like laugh. If it makes you smile, smile. Like you're telling a story because this is the most important moment. So it needs to be relatable to you. And I only do monologues that I can resonate with. Otherwise, it's just too hard. And that's where you have to quote unquote act. And nobody wants to see you act. They just want to hear a story. They just want to be with you on a 2-minute ride. So for that one, I loved the story. It was from What We Do in the Shadows. And the original story was from a vampire point of view, and he had an accent, and he was talking. If I tried to recreate that with an accent and all that stuff, all I would be doing is copying the movie. But how would Michelle tell this story? And that's how I think where the comedy came in, because if I was a vampire and telling this story, this is how I speak, this is how I act. And I think that was what really helped me. Although I didn't know I was going to win that competition. I actually did that because I was missing acting so much. We were in quarantine. I needed an outlet, and it was a really fun opportunity. And then when I won, I was pleasantly shocked. And I was feeling a little bit low in that moment because I knew my career wasn't going to come back for a while. And winning that made me feel very proud, but also reinstilled in my values that this is something I absolutely can never give up on. So as I said, it's very surprising sometimes. Like I go into it for fun. And when it comes out with something like that, it's almost like a reminder from the universe that don't stop.
Yeah, absolutely. How did you, speaking of COVID, like what's your outlook for the industry moving forward? Like, are you optimistic when stuff's going to pick up again?
Yeah, the industry is coming back. The entertainment industry is huge. And I know that they're going to work really hard at making sure they find a way to work within this because it's a community. It really is a community-based thing, this whole film and TV industry. And it's 100% going to thrive. It's going to come back. I don't know about the socialite part of it, how that's going to work. It's definitely going to turn more virtual, but the art of film and TV is a medium that is important.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean by the socialite?
I don't see it.
What do you mean by the socialite aspect?
Like, I don't know what it's going to be like when they need to pack, 5,000 people into a theater for an award show.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Or like, for example, TIFF is canceled this year. Things like that. So it doesn't thrive. It's not going to thrive in that way, which is exactly, I think, kind of a good thing because it's going to filter out those people who chase those types of rewards.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to get, I think from the industry point of view, it's going to narrow it down to what's important, which is creating, working, and making things, which I don't think is going to be impeded by all this COVID thing. I think now that, as I said, they're going to work hard to make sure all the measures are in place to succeed, to make things.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who are making things are the ones that are passion driven.
Oh, totally.
I mean, for me, it's made me think about my career, and it definitely challenges the thought of what you're going to do as everything is changing, but it's also kind of exciting because it's always nice to spice things up, I think.
Yeah.
So it's a whole new learning process. And if you're, for me, I'm on the ride, so I'm gonna see how that all goes down. So that's probably the good thing that came out of it. And also, again, looking back on me and realizing, am I ready for this kind of thing? That took a struggle for a while. I've always felt a lot of pressure because I have been successful to always be successful. And I had to remind myself that this is a huge change and it's kind of hitting the reset button. But now it's going to be part of like this whole movement, like history is in the making type thing.
Oh, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Michelle, I want to thank you so much for being here today and just talking acting with me and sharing your insights.
Yeah, well, thanks, Will, for being awesome, number one.
Thank you.
And for inviting me on your podcast and letting me gush about my passions. I hope I know I give a lot of tough love and I'm very direct with what I say, but it comes from a place of love and support and encouragement for people out there. And I hope I resonate with people because honestly, this is the type of language that is needed, and hopefully it helps someone or resonates with someone.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
I'd like to thank Michelle McLeod for coming through and all of you for listening. If you want to see some of her films, I would highly recommend checking out Don't Talk to Irene or Honeybee, both available on Amazon Prime. One is a light feel-good comedy, the other a dark, gut-wrenching story about the sex trade industry. Yeah, didn't think a movie called Honeybee would be about prostitutes, did ya? You know, I've been friends with Michelle for a long time, and she's done a ton as an actor and comedian, but it's been really cool recently to see her stepping up as a mental health advocate. She's got some really inspiring content on Instagram at The Mindful Goddess Creative. So if you're into that kind of thing, check it out. She's doing really great work there. And you can also follow her acting journey at _Michelle McLeod_. Again, listeners, thank you for checking out the show. I'll be back with another episode soon. Podcaster till the end. Tell a friend, Chris. Until then, stay on your path, follow your passion. Peace.